Commander Jake Morrison looked out the window of his ship into the dark space around Earth. The stars looked peaceful tonight. His ship, the Titan's Edge, moved slowly through the empty space near the moon. Jake had done this patrol many times. Before, it was usually quiet and boring. "Commander, we have something on the radar," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her pilot seat. Her voice sounded worried. "It's moving fast toward us." Jake walked over to look at her screen. A small dot was coming their way. It was not big, but it was moving faster than any human ship could go. "What do you think it is, Amy?" "I don't know, sir. It's too small to be a ship with people in it. Maybe it's some kind of robot probe." Sergeant Tony Blake looked up from his computer. He was the ship's engineer and knew all about different types of machines. "The energy readings are strange, Commander. This thing uses power in a way I've never seen before." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years flying for the Earth Defense Force, he had never seen anything like this. "Lisa, try to contact it," he told their communications officer. Lisa Park pressed buttons on her radio equipment. "I'm sending the standard greeting message," she said. No answer yet. The strange object got closer. Soon they could see it clearly. It looked like a silver ball with strange markings on its surface. Blue lights moved around it in patterns that hurt to look at. "Commander," Lisa said suddenly, "it's sending us a message, but it's not in any human language." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The screen in front of them lit up. Strange symbols appeared, moving and changing. Then suddenly, the symbols changed into English words. Jake's blood went cold as he read them. "People of the third planet, we are the Zephyrian Empire. We have been watching your world for many cycles. Your species has been chosen for harvesting. You will serve the Empire as workers. Your leaders have 72 hours to surrender. If you resist, your world will be destroyed. This is not a request. This is a fact." The message repeated several times. Then the probe turned around and flew away faster than they could follow. Amy turned to look at Jake. Her face was white with fear. "Commander, what do we do?" Jake's mind was racing. Aliens were real. They were coming to make humans into slaves. And Earth only had 3 days to decide what to do. "Tony, record everything about that probe. Every detail. Lisa, send an emergency message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to speak to General Stone right away." "Yes, sir," both officers said at the same time. The trip back to Earth felt like it took forever. Jake kept thinking about the message. An empire that had been watching Earth. Ships that could travel faster than anything humans had built. Weapons that could destroy whole planets. How could Earth fight against something like that? When they landed at the main base, General Marcus Stone was waiting for them. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. Next to him stood President Helen Ross. Jake had never met the president before. Seeing her there made him realize how serious this was. "Commander Morrison," the general said, "tell us everything." Jake explained about the probe and showed them the recording. When the alien message played, President Ross sat down heavily in a chair. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "We don't know, ma'am," Jake replied. "But if they've been watching U.S. for a long time, they probably know everything about our defenses." General Stone looked grim. "Our best weapons are nothing compared to what we just saw. That probe moved faster than our fastest fighters. If they have big ships with the same technology, we need options," President Ross said. "What about our space defense systems?" "They won't be enough," the general admitted. "We have 12 ships like the Titan's Edge. The aliens probably have hundreds or thousands." While they were talking, an aide ran into the room. "Sir, we're getting reports from observatories around the world. They're seeing strange lights in space, lots of them. They're getting closer. Jake felt sick. The invasion was already starting. Dr. Richard Hayes entered the room. He was a scientist who worked on secret government projects. Jake had heard of him but never met him before. Dr. Hayes looked excited about something. "General, I need to tell you about something we found," Dr. Hayes said quickly. "We've been detecting strange energy readings from deep underground. Very deep. The readings started getting stronger right after the alien probe visited." "What kind of readings?" President Ross asked. "Energy patterns that don't match anything. We know. They're coming from about 20 miles down, under the Colorado mountains. The readings suggest something artificial. Something very large." General Stone frowned. "How large?" "Bigger than a city. Maybe bigger than a state." "Sir, I think there's something down there that's been waiting. Something that woke up when the aliens arrived." Jake listened with growing amazement. First aliens, now mysterious underground structures. What was happening to the world? "How long to investigate?" the president asked. "We could have a team down there in 6 hours," Dr. Hayes replied. "But we'll need military support. And, sir, I recommend Commander Morrison and his team. Join us. They're the only ones who've actually seen the alien technology." President Ross looked at Jake. "Commander, are you willing to go underground while alien ships are heading toward Earth?" Jake thought about his family back home. He thought about all the people on Earth who didn't know what was coming. "Yes, ma'am. If there's something down there that can help us, we need to find it." "Then go," she said. "Take your team and find out what's under those mountains. The rest of us will prepare for the worst." As Jake left the room with Dr. Hayes, he could hear President Ross and General Stone talking about evacuation plans. Outside, he could see people looking up at the sky, pointing at new lights that hadn't been there before. The countdown had begun. Earth had less than 3 days before the aliens arrived. And somewhere deep underground, something was waiting. The helicopter flew through the night toward the Colorado mountains. Jake Morrison sat next to Dr. Richard Hayes, watching the dark peaks get closer. In the seats behind them, Amy Carter and Tony Blake checked their equipment. They had been flying for 2 hours since leaving the base. "There," Dr. Hayes pointed to a flat area between 2 mountains. "That's where our readings are strongest." Jake could see lights below. Military trucks and drilling equipment were already there. Scientists in white coats moved around large machines that Jake didn't recognize. "How deep do we have to go?" Amy asked. 20 miles straight down," Dr. Hayes replied. "We've been drilling for the past 6 months, but we didn't know what we were looking for until today." The helicopter landed near a large metal structure. It looked like an elevator shaft going deep into the ground. Dr. Nina Bell, an older woman with short gray hair, walked over to meet them. "Dr. Hayes, the drilling team just broke through," she said. Her voice was excited, but also scared. "There's a chamber down there, a big one, and the walls are giving off their own light." Jake and his team followed the scientists to the elevator. Captain Roy Green, a military engineer, was already putting on safety gear. "The air down there is safe to breathe," Roy explained. "But the temperature is exactly 72 degrees. No matter how deep we go, it stays the same. That's not natural." The elevator ride down took almost an hour. Jake watched the numbers on the display change. 5 miles down, 10 miles, 15, 20. Finally, the elevator stopped. The doors opened, and Jake stepped into something impossible. The chamber was huge. The ceiling was so high that their lights couldn't reach it. The walls curved away in all directions, covered in a smooth, dark material that glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols covered every surface, moving and changing like living things. "My God," Tony whispered. "How big is this place?" Dr. Bell was studying her instruments. The chamber extends for miles in every direction. But that's not the amazing part. She pointed ahead of them. Look at what's in the center. Jake walked forward and stopped. In the middle of the chamber sat something that made his mind struggle to understand what he was seeing. It was a ship, but calling it a ship was like calling the ocean a puddle. The vessel stretched away from them further than Jake could see. It was made of the same dark material as the walls, but it pulsed with more colors than just blue. Red, gold, green, and silver lights moved across its surface in complex patterns. "How big is it?" Amy asked in a quiet voice. "Our scans show it's at least 300 miles long," Dr. Hayes replied. "Maybe longer. The scanners can't find the other end." Tony was looking at his tablet computer. "Commander, the energy readings from this thing are off the charts. If this is a power source, it could run the entire world for thousands of years." Dr. Bell walked over to one of the walls near the ship. The symbols they were different from the others. They looked older, but also somehow familiar. "I think these are letters," she said. "Not English, but they follow patterns like human writing. Look at this symbol. It appears in the same places where we would put the letter A in English." Jake studied the symbols. Dr. Bell was right. The more he looked, the more they seemed like an ancient version of letters he knew. "Can you read any of it?" he asked. "I'm starting to," Dr. Bell replied. "This section here talks about waiting. Something about sleeping until the inheritors return, and this word keeps appearing. I think it means world breaker." Amy walked up to the ship itself. The hull towered above her like a cliff. "There's an opening here," she called. "It looks like a door." Jake and the others hurried over. The opening was exactly the right size for humans to walk through. The edges glowed brighter as they got closer. "It's responding to us," Roy observed. "Like it knows we're here." Jake made a decision. "I'm going inside." "Sir, that might not be safe," Tony warned. "Nothing about this situation is safe," Jake replied. "But we need to know what this thing is. Earth needs answers." He stepped through the opening. The others followed close behind. Inside the ship, lights came on automatically. The corridors were clearly made for humans. The ceiling was the right height, the doorways the right size. Everything felt familiar, even though Jake had never seen anything like it. They walked deeper into the ship. The walls showed the same moving symbols, but now they were changing faster. It was like the ship was trying to communicate. "Commander," Lisa's voice came through their radio. She had stayed on the surface to maintain contact. "The alien fleet is moving faster. General Stone says they'll be here in 36 hours, not 72. Jake felt his stomach drop. They were running out of time. They reached a large room at the center of the ship. The walls here were covered with screens showing images. Jake saw stars, planets, and what looked like other ships like this one. In the center of the room was a chair that seemed to be made for humans. Suddenly, the screens changed. A voice spoke, in the strange language they had seen written on the walls. Then, like the alien probe before, the words changed to English. "Welcome, inheritors. I am Atlas, guardian of the world breaker. I have been waiting 50,000 years for humans to return." Jake looked around, but couldn't see who was speaking. "Who are you? What is this place?" "I am the artificial mind of this vessel. You are the descendants of those who built me. Your ancestors ruled the galaxy long ago, before they chose to hide this world and start again." Amy stepped forward. "Our ancestors? But humans have only been in space for a few decades. The humans who built this ship lived 50,000 years ago. They fought a great war against the same enemy that threatens you now. When they won, they chose to give up their empire and create new worlds where their children could grow up in peace. Dr. Bell was writing frantically in her notebook. The Zephyrians. Your ancestors fought the Zephyrians before? Yes, the Zephyrian. Empire has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. They conquer worlds, enslave the people, then move on to find new victims. Your ancestors stopped them once. This ship was built to stop them again if they ever returned. Tony was staring at the screens. This ship can fight an entire alien fleet? This ship can destroy entire star systems if necessary. It was built as the ultimate weapon, but also as the ultimate protector. It will only function for the descendants of its builders. It will only function for humans. Jake felt the weight of what they had discovered. What do you need from us? One of you must bond with the ship's systems. Become one with the World Breaker. But the process will change you forever. You will gain the memories and knowledge of your ancestors, but you will no longer be fully human. The room fell silent. Outside, an alien fleet was racing toward Earth. Here, they had found humanity's greatest weapon, but using it would cost whoever volunteered their humanity. How long do we have to decide? Jake asked. The enemy fleet will arrive in 34 hours. The bonding process takes 12 hours. If you are to save your world, the choice must be made soon. Jake looked at his team. Amy, Tony, Dr. Hayes, Dr. Bell, and Roy all stared back at him. On their faces, he could see the same thing he was feeling. Fear, but also hope, somewhere above. Them 6 billion people went about their daily lives, not knowing that their fate was being decided in a chamber deep underground. The clock was running out. Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the ancient ship, staring at the chair that would change his life forever. Atlas, the ship's artificial mind, had been showing them recordings of the ancient war. The screens around them displayed battles that happened 50,000 years ago. Your ancestors called themselves the predecessors, Atlas explained. They built an empire that stretched across the galaxy. But when they defeated the Zephyrians, they made a choice that no other species has ever made. On the screen, Jake watched. Massive ships fighting in space. The human ships were beautiful and deadly, moving like living things among the stars. The Zephyrian vessels looked like dark insects, swarming and attacking in huge numbers. What choice? Dr. Bell asked, still taking notes. They chose to give up their power. Instead of ruling the galaxy, they decided to plant seeds of life on distant worlds. They wanted their children to grow up free, without the burden of empire. This world, Earth, was one of those seeds. Amy looked confused. But why? If they were winning the war, why give up? Because they learned that power corrupts. The predecessors saw what the Zephyrians had become. They didn't want to become the same thing. So they hid their greatest weapons and scattered their people across the stars. Tony was studying the ship's systems on his tablet. This ship, the World Breaker. How many others are there? Hundreds. One for every seed world the predecessors created. Each one waits for the day when their descendants might need to defend themselves. Jake watched as the screens showed the final battle of the ancient war. A ship like the World Breaker fired a weapon that turned an entire star into a directed beam of energy. The Zephyrian fleet in that system was completely destroyed. The bonding process, Jake said. What exactly happens? Atlas dimmed the lights and focused them on the chair. You will connect directly with the ship's neural network. Your mind will merge with mine and with the accumulated knowledge of all predecessors. You will see their memories, understand their technology, and gain the ability to control this vessel as if it were your own body. And the cost? You will no longer think like a normal human. Your perspective will expand to encompass millions of years of memory and knowledge. Some who undergo the process lose touch with their humanity entirely. Others find a balance, but they are forever changed. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. How do we know this will work? How do we know the ship can really defeat the Zephyrian fleet. The screens around them changed to show the current situation in space. The alien fleet was clearly visible now, a cloud of dark ships moving toward Earth. Jake counted hundreds of vessels, some larger than entire cities. The Zephyrian Empire has grown since the ancient war, Atlas admitted, but they still use the same basic technology. This ship was designed to fight fleets much larger than the one approaching Earth. Captain Roy Green had been quiet, studying the ship's structure. What about Earth itself? If we're underground when this ship activates, what happens to the planet? The Worldbreaker is built into the planet's core. When it awakens, it must rise to the surface. The geological effects will be significant. Mountains will move, continents will shift, but the planet will survive. Jake felt sick thinking about it. How many people will die just from the ship waking up? If the population is evacuated from unstable areas, casualties can be minimized. But there will be losses. The question is whether those losses are acceptable compared to the extinction of your species. Amy walked over to Jake. Commander, let me do it. I'm the pilot. I understand how to merge with ship systems better than anyone. No, Tony said. I should do it. I'm the engineer. I know how machines work. Jake looked at his team. These people had followed him through years of service. They trusted him to make the hard decisions. Now he faced the hardest decision of all. It has to be me, he said quietly. I'm the mission commander. This is my responsibility. Jake, you don't have to do this alone, Amy protested. Yes, I do. If something goes wrong, I need all of you here to figure out another solution. Earth needs backup plans. Dr. Bell looked up from her notes. Commander, I've been translating more of the symbols. The predecessors left instructions. They wanted their descendants to know that this choice should never be made lightly. The person who bonds with the ship carries the weight of an entire civilization. Jake nodded. He understood the weight. He had felt it since the moment they discovered the ship. Above them, through 20 miles of rock, the alien fleet was getting closer. Jake thought about his sister back home, about the millions of families who had no idea what was coming. He thought about children playing in parks and people going to work, all of them depending on decisions being made in this underground chamber. Atlas, how long do we have before the fleet arrives? 22 hours, 17 minutes. And how long for the bonding? 12 hours for the primary process. Additional time for full integration with ship systems. Jake did the math. If he started now, he would be ready just in time. If anything went wrong, there would be no second chances. I need to contact the surface, he decided. The President and General Stone need to know what we found. Lisa's voice came through their radios. Commander, I've been monitoring military communications. They're evacuating major cities. The alien fleet is visible to telescopes now. People are starting to panic. Jake walked over to the communications equipment they had brought with them. Lisa, patch me through to General Stone. A few minutes later, the general's voice came through. Clearly, Morrison, what's your status? Sir, we found something. Something that can fight the aliens. But it comes with a cost. Jake explained everything they had learned. The ancient human civilization, the ship buried under Earth, the bonding, process that would awaken humanity's ultimate weapon. When he finished, there was a long silence. Commander, President Ross's voice joined the conversation. Are you certain this ship can stop the invasion? According to its artificial intelligence, yes, ma'am. But, sir, when this ship activates, it's going to cause earthquakes and geological changes across the planet. We need to evacuate people from fault lines and unstable areas. We're already working on evacuations, General Stone replied. How soon can you begin this bonding process? Jake looked at the chair that would transform him into something no longer entirely human. "I can start immediately, sir." "Do it, President," Ross said without hesitation. "Save our world, Commander." As Jake ended the communication, he realized his hands were shaking. In a few hours, he would no longer be Jake Morrison. He would be something else, something connected to a ship that could destroy stars. Amy put her hand on his shoulder. "Jake, are you sure about this?" He looked around the control room one more time. At the screens showing the approaching alien fleet. At his team, who had followed him this far. At the chair that represented humanity's last hope. "I'm sure he." Sighed. "Atlas, begin the bonding process." The chair began to glow as Jake approached it. The screens around the room showed energy building throughout the massive ship. Deep underground, humanity's greatest weapon was preparing to wake up above them. The alien fleet continued its approach, unaware that Earth was about to reveal a secret hidden for 50,000 years. Jake sat down in the chair, and the world changed forever. Jake Morrison felt the ship's systems flow into his mind like water filling an empty cup. But this cup had no bottom, and the water was an ocean of memories from 50,000 years ago. He saw through the eyes of the predecessors, felt their thoughts, understood their language, as if he had spoken it all his life. Around him, the world breaker began to wake up. "Jake, can you hear me?" Amy's voice seemed to come from very far away, though she was standing right next to the chair. "I can hear you," Jake replied, but his voice sounded different now. Deeper, more confident. "I can hear everything." Through the ship's sensors, Jake felt the world breaker rising through the Earth's crust. 20 miles of rock moved aside as if it were water. Mountains shifted and valleys opened. On the surface, the largest earthquake in human history shook the planet. Tony was watching his instruments with amazement. "Commander, the energy output from this ship is incredible. It's like having 100 nuclear power plants in one vessel." "More than that," Jake said, his consciousness expanding through the ship's systems. "The world breaker generates power by manipulating space itself. It draws energy from the fabric of reality." Dr. Bell was recording everything, though her notes could barely keep up with what was happening. "Jake, what do you see? What do you remember from the predecessors?" Images flashed through Jake's mind. Cities floating in space. Planets transformed into gardens. Wars fought across entire galaxies. And always the choice to give up power for the sake of freedom. "They were like us," Jake said slowly. "Human, but they had grown beyond Earth, beyond this solar system. They ruled 1,000 worlds and commanded fleets that could reshape stars. When they defeated the Zephyrians the first time, they could have ruled the galaxy forever. But they didn't," Dr. Hayes observed. "No, they saw what ruling an empire did to other species. The Zephyrians had once been explorers and scientists, but conquest changed them into something cruel and hungry. The predecessors didn't want to become the same thing. The ship broke through the Earth's surface, like a whale surfacing from the deep ocean. Continents moved. New mountain ranges formed. Oceans shifted their boundaries. But the world breaker rose, its massive hull stretching beyond the horizon in every direction. Through the ship's external cameras, Jake could see the Zephyrian fleet in space above. They had stopped their approach and were gathering into battle. Formation. War Marshal Kethfer, their leader, was probably trying to understand what he was seeing. "Atlas," Jake said, his mind now directly connected to the ship's artificial intelligence. "Show me the enemy fleet's composition." Information flowed into Jake's consciousness. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 847 ships, including the massive flagship Dominion's Wrath. Their weapons were plasma-based, capable of destroying cities with single shots. Their shields could deflect most known weapons, But Jake now had access to weapons that the Zephyrians had never seen before. Amy, he sighed, turning to his pilot. The ship has fighter craft. Hundreds of them. They're designed to interface directly with human minds. Take a squadron and show our visitors what predecessor technology can do. Amy nodded, though Jake could see the worry in her eyes. He was changing, becoming something more than human. She could sense it as Amy left to find the fighter bay. Jake turned his attention to the approaching fleet. Through the Worldbreaker's sensors, he could detect the aliens' communications. They were afraid. The ship's emergence had been visible from their position in space, and their sensors were showing energy readings they didn't understand. Commander Morrison. War Marshal Kethvar's voice came through the ship's communication systems. I don't know what trick you humans have performed, but it will not save you. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Jake activated the external speakers. When he spoke, his voice carried across the Earth's surface and into space itself. I am Jake Morrison, bonded with the Worldbreaker, inheritor of the predecessor legacy. Your empire enslaved worlds and destroyed civilizations for thousands of years. 50,000 years ago, my ancestors stopped you. Today, I will finish what they started. In space, the Zephyrian fleet began to attack. Plasma weapons fired at the Worldbreaker from hundreds of ships simultaneously. The energy was enough to destroy entire continents. The Worldbreaker's shields absorbed every shot without effort. Jake felt the ship's defensive systems as if they were part of his own body. The shields weren't just barriers, they were energy converters, taking the aliens' attacks and transforming them into power for the ship's own weapons. Impossible, War Marshal Kethvar transmitted. No ship can withstand that much firepower. Your weapons are primitive, Jake replied calmly. Your ancestors fought my ancestors with the same technology you use today. You learned nothing from your defeat. Through the ship's communications array, Jake detected something else. Other signals coming from across the galaxy. The Worldbreaker's awakening had sent out a pulse of energy that traveled faster than light, reaching every corner of space where the predecessors had planted their seeds. On distant worlds, other ships were waking up. Other humans, descendants of the ancient empire, were bonding with their own Worldbreakers. Humanity's true civilization was remembering itself. Tony was monitoring the ship's systems from his position in the control room. Commander, we're receiving signals from ... everywhere. There are dozens of ships like this one, all coming online. Not dozens, Jake corrected. His consciousness expanded across space itself. Hundreds. The predecessors planted seeds on every world that could support human life. Some of those seeds grew into colonies. Some grew into entire civilizations. All of them are waking up now. Amy's voice came through the communications from her fighter craft. Jake, these ships are incredible. They respond to thought as much as to controls. It's like flying a part of your own body. Jake watched through the ship's sensors as Amy led a squadron of predecessor fighters against the Zephyrian fleet. The alien ships were large and powerful, but the human fighters moved like living things, dodging weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid and striking with precision that defied physics. The first Zephyrian ship exploded in a ball of plasma. Then another. The fighters were using weapons that targeted the molecular structure of the alien hulls, causing them to collapse from within. This is not possible, War Marshal Kethvar transmitted again, but now his voice carried fear. Humans are a primitive species. You have barely left your home world. The humans you've been watching are my children, Jake replied. The predecessors chose to start over, to let their descendants grow up without the burden of empire. But we never forgot how to fight when our survival was threatened. More signals were coming in from across the galaxy. Human colonies that had thought they were alone were discovering ancient technology hidden on their worlds. Ships that dwarfed anything the Zephyrians had ever built were emerging from the depths of space. In the Zephyrian fleet, panic was setting in. Their sensors were detecting energy signatures from multiple star systems. The humans weren't just on Earth. They were everywhere. War Marshal, one of his officers transmitted. We're receiving reports from across the Empire. Human ships are appearing in every sector. They're bigger than our entire fleet. Jake felt the moment when War Marshal Kethver understood the truth. The Zephyrian Empire hadn't been fighting a primitive species. They had awakened an ancient enemy that had been sleeping for 50,000 years. You want to see what the predecessors were capable of? Jake asked, his voice now carrying across multiple star systems simultaneously. Let me show you. Through the Worldbreaker's main weapon array, Jake reached out and touched a distant star. With careful manipulation of gravitational fields, he caused the star to pulse, sending a beam of concentrated stellar energy across space. The beam didn't target the Zephyrian fleet. Instead, it struck an empty asteroid field, vaporizing thousands of rocks in an instant. It was a demonstration, a warning of what the Worldbreaker could do if Jake chose to use its full power. In the sudden silence that followed, War Marshal Kethvar's voice came through one more time. What do you want? Jake considered the question. The predecessor's memories showed him the futility of endless war, but they also showed him the importance of protecting the innocent. I want your empire to learn what my ancestors tried to teach you 50,000 years ago, Jake replied. That true strength comes from creation, not destruction. That the greatest victory is the one that doesn't require a battle. And if we refuse? Jake let the weight of 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge settle into his voice. Then you will learn why your ancestors never forgot the name Worldbreaker. The Zephyrian fleet hung in space above Earth, their weapons powered down, but their ships still ready for battle. War Marshal Kethvar had called for a temporary halt to hostilities while he consulted with the Zephyrian High Command. Through the Worldbreaker's sensors, Jake Morrison could hear their panicked communications across the galaxy. The humans have 17 different fleets moving toward our territory, one officer reported. Ships we've never seen before, larger than our dreadnoughts. How is this possible? Another voice demanded. Our intelligence reports said they barely had space travel. Jake listened with the patience of someone who now carried 50,000 years of memories. The predecessors had faced the same confusion from other species. Nobody expected a civilization to voluntarily give up its power and start over. Amy Carter returned from her fighter mission, her face glowing with excitement and wonder. Jake, those ships are incredible. It's like they read my mind. When I wanted to turn left, they turned left before I even moved the controls. The predecessor technology bonds with human consciousness, Jake explained, though his voice still carried that new, deeper quality that reminded his team he was no longer entirely human. The ships become extensions of the pilot's will. Tommy. Blake was studying the readings from their brief engagement with the Zephyrian ships. Commander, our weapons didn't just destroy their hulls. They seem to have shut down their entire power systems. How is that possible? The predecessors learned to attack the fundamental forces that hold matter together, Jake replied. Their weapons don't just destroy ships. They convince the atoms to stop cooperating with each other. Dr. Bell looked up from her notes. Jake, what happens now? Even with all this power, we can't fight an entire galactic empire forever. Jake considered the question. Through his connection to the Worldbreaker, he could see the scope of the Zephyrian Empire. Thousands of worlds, trillions of beings, most of them slaves, forced to serve the Empire's endless hunger for conquest. The predecessors faced the same problem, he said. You can't rule a galaxy through fear. It only creates more enemies. But you also can't allow evil to spread unchecked. A new signal came through the communications array. This one was different. It carried the identification codes of another world breaker. Jake's consciousness expanded to meet another mind like his own. I am Marcus Webb, bonded with the Starforge, guardian of the Kepler colony, the voice said. My people have been isolated for 300 years. We thought we were alone. You were never alone, Jake replied. The predecessors planted seeds across the entire galaxy. How many of us are awakening? At least 200 ships have come online in the past 12 hours, maybe more. The pulse you sent out is still spreading to the Outer Rim territories. Through their shared connection, Jake felt the presence of other human minds across the galaxy. Each one was bonded with a world breaker, each one carrying the memories of the predecessors. Together, they represented the return of humanity's true civilization. But more importantly, they represented something the galaxy had never seen before, a force powerful enough to stop the Zephyrian Empire without becoming the same kind of tyrants. War Marshal. Kethver's image appeared on the World Breaker's main screen. The alien commander looked older than when the battle began, worn down by the realization of what he was facing. Human Commander, he began, I have spoken with the High Command. We ... We remember the stories. Our ancestors spoke of the predecessors. We thought they were myths. What did those stories tell you? Jake asked. That the predecessors defeated our empire not through conquest, but by offering us something we had never considered. Kethver paused. The choice to change. Jake felt a spark of hope. Perhaps the Zephyrians could learn after all. My ancestors offered your people the chance to become explorers again instead of conquerors, Jake said. To use your technology to build rather than destroy. Your ancestors chose to continue the old ways. And now? Jake considered his options. The World Breaker's weapons could destroy the entire Zephyrian fleet in minutes. The combined human fleet could probably crush the Empire within weeks. But victory through destruction would only create new enemies and new cycles of violence. Now you have the same choice your ancestors had, Jake replied. Change or face the consequences. Amy stepped forward. Jake, what if they refuse? What if they pretend to agree and then attack when we're not ready? Jake smiled, and for a moment he sounded like his old self. Amy, we have ships that can manipulate stars and weapons that can reshape matter at the atomic level. They'll never catch us unprepared again. Dr. Hayes had been monitoring communications from Earth's surface. Commander, President Ross wants to speak with you. The president's voice came through clearly. Commander Morrison, the world is watching what happens next. What are your intentions? Jake thought about Earth, about the people who had lived there, entire lives without knowing their true heritage. Ma'am, I intend to give humanity its place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. The predecessors built this technology to defend against tyranny. That's exactly what we're going to do. And the Zephyrian Empire? They have a choice to make. They can join us in building a better galaxy, or they can face the same fate that awaits all tyrants. War Marshal Kethver spoke again. Human Commander, if we agree to your terms, what guarantee do we have that you won't simply destroy us later? Jake accessed the predecessor's memories, searching for the wisdom of his ancestors. The answer came to him clearly. The same guarantee the predecessors gave you 50,000 years ago, he said. We'll prove it by our actions. We're not interested in ruling your empire. We're interested in freeing the people you've enslaved. Across the galaxy, the other awakened world breakers began their work. Ships that had been hidden for 50 millennia emerged from gas giants and asteroid fields. Ancient space stations came online, their massive construction facilities beginning to build a new generation of human vessels. But more importantly, they began liberating worlds that had been under Zephyrian control for centuries. The human ships would arrive at a conquered planet, destroy the Zephyrian garrison, and then leave immediately. They didn't stay to rule or conquer. They simply freed the enslaved populations and moved on. Tony was tracking the liberation efforts on his tablet. Commander, we've received reports from 37 star systems. The pattern is the same everywhere. Human ships arrive, defeat the Zephyrian forces, and then withdraw. The freed populations don't know what to make of it. They're not used to being rescued without strings attached, Jake observed. The Zephyrians taught the galaxy that all power comes with a price. Lisa Park's voice came through from the Surface Communications Center. Commander, we are receiving surrender requests from Zephyrian commanders in 6 different sectors. They're asking for terms. Jake felt the weight of decision. The predecessor's memories showed him how difficult it was to build peace after centuries of war. But they also showed him that it was possible. Tell them the terms are simple, he said. Release all enslaved populations. Withdraw to your home systems. Begin the transition from a military empire to a peaceful civilization. We'll provide assistance and technology to help with the transition. And if they refuse? Jake thought about the World Breaker's ultimate weapon, the ability to weaponize stars themselves. It was power beyond imagination, but it was also responsibility. Beyond measure. Then we'll remind them why the predecessors were never defeated. War Marshal Kethvar appeared on the screen one final time. His image was being broadcast not just to the World Breaker, but to every ship in his fleet and every world in the Zephyrian Empire. People of the Zephyrian Empire, he began, I have decided to accept the human terms. The age of conquest is over. It is time for us to remember what we were before we became what we are. Across the galaxy, similar announcements were being made. The Zephyrian Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years, was beginning to transform itself. Jake felt the satisfaction of the predecessors' memories. This was what they had always hoped for, not the destruction of their enemies, but their redemption. What happens now? Amy asked. Jake looked out at the stars, feeling the presence of hundreds of other human minds bonded to ships like the World Breaker. Earth's children had finally come home to their true heritage. Now we build the galaxy our ancestors dreamed of, he said. A place where every species can grow and explore and create without fear. A place where the strongest protect the weakest, and where power serves wisdom rather than the other way around. Dr. Bell smiled as she made her final notes. So this is how the human galactic empire returns. Not with conquest, but with liberation. Not an empire, Jake corrected gently. Commonwealth. The predecessors learned that empires always fall, but communities built on cooperation and mutual respect can last forever. As the alien fleet began its withdrawal from Earth's space, Jake Morrison, no longer entirely human, but somehow more human than ever, began the work of building a new kind of civilization among the stars. The age of the World Breakers had begun.